Hey everyone, I know this isn't a guest episode, and here's why. When I looked at my posting calendar, I realized that the day this episode airs is the presidential inauguration. Given the events that happened on January 6th, I have no idea what will happen in the week this airs, which also happens to fall around Martin Luther King Jr. Day. All in all, I felt it was appropriate to put my normal interview content on hold and cover a topic that I'm sure many of us could use right now: rest and coping. After the events on January 6th at the Capitol, I went to post on LinkedIn something I had pre-planned for that week. And as I was getting ready to post it, I couldn't. It was a positive post that bordered on toxic positivity given the events of that week. And those events impacted everyone. I tried to rewrite the post, change the photo, but in the end, I scrapped it and posted something more timely and honest. Since that day, I've realized that regardless of the content that I have planned, if I'm not listening to the current events of the moment, I'm adding to the problem. By dismissing the fact that there are significant issues happening in our nation right now, I'm complicit in them continuing. The past almost year at this point has been hard. The pandemic, people losing their jobs, political and social unrest, people getting sick with long-term impact, people dying. While many of these things are actually normal in a given year, because of the pandemic, there is a heightened awareness of current events and the general state of things in our personal, local, national, and worldly sphere. On top of that, the world of work has been upended in most sectors, and work stress, lack of support, and having to work and manage kids is an added stress that no one has really dealt with before. I know that we are tired. Everyone is tired. And as someone who tends to be a workaholic and a high achiever, learning to rest has definitely been a test of my patience over the years, ironically. But I'm learning. And while it's still early in the year, and I'm sure some of you are still going hard with your goals that you set, I'm calling on you to do a mental and emotional check-in. With everything that's happening, we need to take time to rest and cope with current events in a healthy way. What does this mean? How do we rest? I know that when someone tells me to rest, I often think of taking a nap. I don't know why, I just do. But usually that's not an option. And when you're a little bit older in life, taking a quick nap can definitely throw off your sleep at night. Again, that's been my experience. But I wanted to provide some solid tips, and I found a really great article from the Suicide Prevention Lifeline organization, and I'll link that in the blog post for this episode. And along with these tips, they also include links to multiple websites with other coping and rest-related information, so I highly recommend that you check that out. And honestly, this isn't my area of expertise, and I didn't want to come on this episode and speak from my experience, even though I do have some experience with this, but I wanted to make sure that I was providing reputable resources and content for you to go to that actually works. Let's get to their list. The first one, and I honestly think in this day and age is one of the most important, limiting media consumption of all forms. In this instance, it helps to know what triggers you and stay away from that platform. My husband and I stopped watching the news many years ago, and by many years ago, we're talking probably about 8 or 9 years ago, because it was too negative, and more often than not, twisted the truth too much for our liking. We'll turn on local news when something is happening, but outside of that, we don't watch it. Most of our news comes from social media, which I understand is also not always the best, but we couple that with a quick search online. And during tumultuous times, we will take a break if the information is impacting our emotional health. So if we think about the pandemic, we had to stop looking at numbers. We had to stop reading articles because it was too much information to take in on a daily basis. And it was creating heightened anxiety where there didn't need to be any for us in that time. Taking a media break after a major incident is extremely helpful to lower anxiety and get rooted in what you can control in your immediate world. Number 2, talk to others who understand and respect how you feel. This is ideally people you trust. Part of resting and coping can include talking out your feelings and thoughts, but it needs to be with someone you feel safe communicating with on the topic, whatever the topic is. I recommend compiling a list and even giving these people a heads up that they are a safe person for you on specific topics. For my white friends out there, be mindful of your friends of color who are likely experiencing the same incident in a completely different manner and might not be a good person to dialogue with about your issues. Being respectful and mindful of your needs and the needs of others is key during times of unrest and stress. Number 3, take care of yourself physically and mentally. Make sure you're eating well, sleeping, exercising, etc. When our emotions get the better of us, we can fall into bad habits that impact our physical health, such as skipping meals or taking to our bed all day. And while a nap can be helpful, you need to make sure that it doesn't become a depressive state or an unhealthy coping mechanism. If you find yourself managing in these extreme ways, talk to someone who can help. A friend, a counselor, a therapist, a parent. Number 4, and I actually thought this was interesting because it was not something that I thought of initially when I was planning for this podcast. Maintain regular routines as best you can. In times of unrest, when we need to rest, we can actually find solitude and calm in our everyday routines. Don't blow it off or ignore it because something is happening outside your control. Your routines and habits will help you stay grounded when the world feels crazy. And I have to admit, that is actually not something that I thought about because I am someone who will end up changing a routine based on how I'm feeling. And this really solidified for me that the normalcy of my routine could actually provide comfort. So that's something to think about if you cope in that way. And number 5, focus on what you can do to take care of yourself right here, right now. This is the tip where I would put activities such as taking a nap, taking a bath, read a book, watch a movie, do a puzzle, create art, exercise. Basically do something that you love to do that brings you calm and make space in your day for it. And honestly, this is just a good practice in general. So if it's not something that you do regularly, you should incorporate it into your kind of weekly, monthly routines. But in times of high unrest, putting yourself into some of these comfort things that are still healthy is such a great way to release some of the pent-up energy that we have and pent-up emotions that we might be experiencing during a high stress time. There are a few others on the list, but these were the tips that I felt most embodied what we need to remember as we're living through these tough historical times. And at the end of the day, you need to recognize how you are feeling and make sure to take time to manage those feelings in a healthy way. For some of you, this will mean taking time off work. Do it. I know you have sick time available. Take it. Take a vacation day. Whatever you need to do. It is better for you to remove yourself from triggering experiences, people, or spaces and take time to rest and disconnect. We all have different expectations in the workplace, but for those of you who are managing others, please be respectful when people ask to take time off for personal reasons. Don't pry. Let them have their space, knowing that giving them space will likely allow them to come back stronger, or at the very least, rested and in their right mind. Currently, when I know that I need to rest, I usually shut down all social media and I inject creativity into my day. For those who don't know, my background is actually in graphic design and art. My dad was an artist, so I have that inside of me, and it's one way that I release any negative energy that I have. I like to paint or do crafts with the tiny human. I'll also reach for a book that is meant to make me a better human, something in the personal or professional development space, so that I can continue to unpack my own bias, my generational views, and limitations in my thinking that might hold me back from seeing all sides of an issue or event. Is this easy work? No, absolutely not. Are these unprecedented times? Somewhat. Generations before us had it much worse, in my opinion, but that doesn't mean we should discount what is happening to us right now. For those of you who might be listening to this and thinking, whatever, it's not happening in my town or directly to me, so it doesn't impact me, please recognize that it might be impacting someone close to you. And for the record, all these incidences impact all of us in some way. I would encourage you to listen to the episode before this one where I have Jade Chan on as a guest. I'll link that episode in the blog post. She does a really great job of talking about diversity and inclusion and stress and how it impacts us. And overall, I think that episode is really great for somebody who doesn't understand what that can feel like. I think she paints a really great picture and we have a really great dialogue about it. Thank you for allowing me to deviate from the new interview format to share these tips with you. I hope you'll be able to implement them into your routine when needed. And remember, these tips are also helpful for pandemic stress and general stress at work. And as always, if you have any questions or you would like to continue this conversation, please connect with Ride the Tide Collective on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. You can also find me on Clubhouse now. And no, I don't have any invites available, so don't ask me for that. But you can search Ride the Tide COL on Clubhouse and follow me there.